What's up, everyone? You are listening to Sisters Breaking Cycles, the podcast.
Grab your favorite drink of choice and join us as we have some hard conversations that no one wants to have.
My name is Joanna, aka JoJo, and I am your host.
And I am Jasmine, your co host.
Welcome back, everyone. It's episode 4, and today's topic is going to be a continuation of what's holding us back, right?
Hmm.
Those are the different topics that we want to get into this series that are just things that really hold us back as individuals from being the best versions of ourselves or moving forward with our desires in life. But before we get into that, we are going to start off with something that we're grateful for, something that happened last week or maybe happened this morning, something we're just grateful for. For me, last week I was able to work from home and I was able to kind of do home chores and still do my trainings and hang out with my dog at home. So it was just really nice. I've always said if I had an opportunity to work from home, sign me up.
Yeah.
I know some people, you either hate it or love it, because I heard from a lot of people during the pandemic, they hated working from home. Like, they couldn't wait to get back and socialize. And for me, I'm like, "No, I wanna be home." Like, I would love that, right? So, it was really nice to be able to work from home last week.
Yeah, well, that's lovely. I'm glad you got that opportunity because I have worked from home and I did love it. I'm definitely on the love this train when it comes to working from home. All the flexibility you have. And, if you ain't, you got your phone, you got everything right there to socialize, anyways.
Mhm.
But something that I am grateful for is our courage and our perseverance in creating this project and bringing it to life and continuing on babying it until we get it to where we want it to be.
I like that. It's nice. Nice thing to be
Mhm.
grateful for. Alright, so thanks for sharing that, sister. Let's jump right into today's topic, which is feeling stuck. And I don't know about our listeners, but there's been several times where I feel like I've been stuck. And getting out of that feeling of stuck has been challenging in many circumstances, but I've learned to kind of just roll with the punches. When I feel like, okay, there needs to be change, I embrace it and I search it and I go for it. So, would you like to get us started with something, one of your stories?
Yes, I have many stories of feeling stuck, mainly revolving around parenting.
Oh,
Parenting,
come
yeah, parenting is a challenge. Oh, I feel like one of the biggest stories that sticks out to me is when Matthias was about 2 years old.
on.
He definitely went through what they call the terrible twos, and they would get very intense and very long. And I was like, whoa, this is a little too much for me to handle. And at the time, the way my parenting techniques and my mindset were, everything that I was trying to do, everything that thought I was supposed to do wasn't working. And I was asking everyone around me, I was asking, mom, at the time I was living with our younger brother and his wife, I was asking her, I was trying to communicate with his dad, trying to strategize. And it didn't matter really what we did, it just didn't work. And so, what I had to do was take a step back and reassess myself and how I was approaching the situation. And I remember feeling so drained
Mm,
of trying and nothing working and seeing no progress that I'm like, I'm just going to go somewhere else, go find some absolutely opposite, different parenting ideas and mindsets from what I had at that time and from what I knew at that time. I'm like, we're just gonna go try something else completely new. Like something I would say at the time I would have never done if it wasn't for this concern of like the tantrums are getting too long and too often. And that's exactly what I did. I went and I took a parenting class. I was like, I'm just gonna go for it and see what I learn, see what happens. I like fully committed to doing it. I was unsure at first because from the description of the class, and then what I eventually learned from the class, I'm like, wow, this is very different than my techniques and what I think, my parenting is. And lo and behold, it worked. It worked almost instantly.
You were like, "Hallelujah, it worked."
Yeah. And I was sold forever. I was like, I
So
still
can you share what did you try different through parenting classes? Like, I'm sure there's people listening that probably are struggling with it or know someone that might be struggling with it. Like, what did you gain out of that experience, that parenting class that really turned that switch into like, "Oh, this works."
yeah, I think my biggest gain was turning the lens on me. Before that, the lens was always on my kid. Like, what is he doing? Why is he doing that? And I'm concerned, like, is this what he's supposed to be doing? Is it normal? Is it, do I need to look into it further? Always questioning, always questioning. And so the biggest thing that I learned from that experience was turning the lens onto me. And so, okay, what am I doing? And what I learned in the class is like, before that, my mindset was discipline, right? I'm gonna he's not listening, he's doing this to get his way. Here's a consequence. We're gonna discipline you, we're gonna have timeout, you're not gonna get your toy, whatever it was, in the certain situation. And that's what I thought during that time. And then after doing this class, they turned it into, they I don't know, they rewired my brain into understanding that when he was actually throwing a tantrum, it wasn't because he wanted to get his way. It was because he was feeling disconnected from me, and I needed to come in and reestablish that connection.
Wow,
And I know, right? Like,
that's powerful.
yeah.
And how did you do it? How did you reestablish the connection with him when he was in the middle of a tantrum?
Yeah, so they gave me the tools in the workshop. And it was very simple. That's what I really loved about it too. There were very simple techniques that were easy to use. Um, I still had a hard time implementing them. Like when I went to implement the techniques, they were still very hard to go through because I wasn't used to it. But eventually I got used to it and I got easier and easier. So one of the techniques um, was to just be present and be there for him. So like on in the onset of the tantrum, within him, he's filled up with all these really intense emotions and doesn't know what to do with them. So he's going to let them out. And so what I have to do is be the calm one and the example of like you can go ahead and unleash those emotions, and I'm going to be the calm one here for you to like kind of keep you grounded, keep you sturdy. And they're like, you can also, it was really just about the presence, being there with him. And that was really hard. So, and then you can add in like little sayings. Oh, it's okay. I know you're upset. It's going to be okay. I'm here for you. Like I love you. And then even touch if the situation called for that. Like maybe a pat on the shoulder, ask them if they need a hug, as things like that. Um and that tool was mainly to help them through the initial onset of the emotion. Because another thing they ended up teaching me is that they can handle the emotion on their own. They can surpass it and get through it on their own. We just have to give them the space and the time to do that in a safe way. So, but that was like, I feel like the hardest part of the steps for me to do was being there for him while he was, having like that full on meltdown. It was difficult to go through and like be, have him screaming right in my ear. But that's what I did. I did those. I pushed through it, and it worked. The tantrum, the next time he had a tantrum after I took that class, it worked very quickly, very quickly. And then another tool that they taught was, they called it like special time, and that you do it when they're not having a tantrum.
Hmm.
So you do these little games or play with them where, and it could be any amount of time, even 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever the parent feels comfortable with. I started off with 5 minutes because that's what I felt comfortable with. But you give them full responsibility during those 5 minutes. Like the special time is them. They get to kind of, I wouldn't say control, but kind of be in control of what's happening around them in the game. They get to make up the rules, and parent can't say anything. Like, we have to follow along. You got to follow along and do it with them. There's no like, oh no, you can't do that. That's wrong. Or no, that's not how the rules go to this game. No, it's the kid. They are in full control during those 5 minutes.
That's kind of cool. That's kind of
Yeah.
unique because they talk about the students. I always say students, children when they're young, their imagination is like, oh my God, it's like
Mhm.
anything you think of, their imaginations are so big. So to give them full range and full control to kind of unleash their imagination and for you to
Mhm.
enter that imaginary zone that they're
Y
creating for you, there's
Yes.
something that is very powerful about that because
Yes.
your child and it also kind of makes you like kind of forget about what's going on, like be present
Mhm.
with that child at that
Yeah.
moment. Because I
Mhm.
think one of the things that you just said right now, which was very powerful, is there's that disconnection with them when they're feeling that way, right? And when you
Mhm.
stop and you really give them that attention that they're requiring, you soothe them. It kind of makes them feel validated. And it kind of makes them feel like, okay, they're paying attention to me. But tantrums sometimes linger on longer than they should
Mhm.
because of that disciplinary action. You're not
Yes.
connecting with them. You could give them what they're asking for, which is attention, and then you could stop it right there within the first 5, 6 minutes.
Mhm.
But instead, by you giving the cold shoulder, or by you being disciplinary or go to your room or whatnot, you could turn that into 45 minutes of
Mhm.
like them just lashing out and going harder and harder because they're simply not getting that need met of just feeling connected to you again.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's really powerful, like, I'm gonna have to do parenting classes when I have a baby.
Yeah, it really, like I said, I mean, it rewired my brain. It was a very short class. It wasn't even that long. It was probably like, I would say, an hour, and then like an hour and a half with the questions after the class. But it was very simple. They worked, very powerful, and they really changed my mindset on parenting and viewing that like parent child relationship and actually understanding what is going on during times like that.
Hmm, I like that.
Yeah.
Alright, thanks for sharing that, sister. I'm sure a lot of
Yeah.
people could relate to that topic around children, and having tantrums and feeling stuck, like feeling helpless, because that's what you get from that. Like, how do I help this child? Like,
Yes.
what can I do? Right? Like, that's
Mhm.
where the feeling stuck really comes into play. And it's really powerful what you shared. I hope it works for different listeners if they try it out. For me, on the other hand, I don't have children. So when I think about feeling stuck, I think about it more in career wise. I think about it more in the relationships that I am a part of. And it just, like, when I feel like I'm falling into a routine and I feel like there isn't, like, I've been doing the same thing for the past 5 years and there's no upgrading, no getting better, no moving into the next level, the next step, that's when I start feeling stuck. And for me, normally when I feel that I'm stuck, I start noticing it by being because I become unhappy. I start
Mhm.
feeling very
Mhm.
unhappy. I start feeling very disengaged, very shut down. And that's when I'm like, ugh, it's because I'm falling into this rut. Falling into this routine that I'm over it already. I've
Mhm.
outgrown it. I'm ready for the next thing.
Yes.
So what I do is I tend to really start journaling about it or start thinking about it and writing about it and processing things of like, okay, because I feel like you're in full control of your happiness. I understand that
Mhm.
now and I've
Yes.
learned that now. I can't put my happiness on other people or expect other people to make me happy. I am in control of that.
Mhm.
And by me being in control of that, I need to really put myself in the environment and the surroundings that are going to make me happy. Like, I control that. So, when it comes to, like, careers, right? I love to, like, learn new things. So, if I'm doing something and it's like, "Okay, I already know it," it's like, I'm not learning anymore, and there's another promotion, there's another opportunity, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna apply for it. I'm gonna step out of that. Sometimes my fear has held me back from jumping and taking far leaps, but at the end of the day, being stuck scares me more than taking the leap and just getting a no out of it, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like either way, you're either gonna be there 5 years from now, or you're gonna take that leap of faith and try to do something to get out of that rut and, like, where you're stuck, and it's either gonna work out or it's not, but if it doesn't work out, at least you tried. At least
Mhm.
you gave it a shot. When it comes to, like, relationships, I feel the same thing, like, in the beginning of every relationship, it's like it's the honeymoon phase and everything's perfect and everything's happy. And then as time passes by, progresses, you kind of begin to just kind of get comfortable and there's no more attraction anymore. There's no more like conquista. There's no more doing things to kind of keep things exciting, right? Especially for me, because I don't have any children, so it's like
Mhm.
there's nothing really getting in the way. So when I start feeling like, "Okay, this is just the same thing over and over again," I've learned throughout the years of, like, expressing my needs, like, communicating and saying, like, like, "I would like to do this," like, "We don't do enough of this," or, "How can we do this to get us into, something exciting again, something
Mhm.
that's gonna make us look forward to something new and not just doing the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
Like, I really like change. I really embrace change. So, when I'm not getting enough of it, that's when I start feeling like I'm stuck, and I'm
Mhm.
always trying to find an avenue out, or what can I do to ruffle some feathers so that I'm able
Yeah.
to get some action, get something different, right, than what I'm used to. So that's
Yeah.
my experience, like, when I'm feeling stuck.
Yeah, and you hit the nail right on the head with that one. I like change too. I could, there are times in my life in other areas where, I can relate to that. I do feel that way as well. And I have to change things up. I have to switch things up. And that's something that we have to realize, like, change is constant. Change is the only thing that's always happening. We're always going through changes. We're always growing. No one is the same person they were a year ago. No one is the same person they were 10 years ago. Like, in order for us to go through this life, we need to have that change. We need to constantly go through that and have that stimulation. If we don't have that stimulation, it cuts off, our creativity and our flow into, our journey of what we are supposed to become in this life.
That is so true. That is very true. Like we need that. What are we seeking? What's next? What's the next adventure?
Mhm.
Like what can we do to become better than we were a week ago, a year ago? Y-
Mhm.
You're totally right about that because I think for many generations in the past, you just kind of got married, had children, became the mother for children, and just kind of stayed at home. And that was it. Like from the moment that happened until your dying day, that's it.
Mhm.
And now things are just really shifting. Like we want more out of life. We don't want to have the same outcome year after year after year. We
Mhm.
want something different. We want to
Mhm.
grow. We want, if you're not having that growth within you as a person, as a couple, as a family, when you have children, it just, it's not a good feeling to have.
It's not. That's where, like you're saying, that's where you start digging this hole for yourself. Where if you're not moving forward, people think like if you're not moving forward, if you're not growing, then you're just in the same place. But no, everything's always in motion. This is
Mhm.
going into let's a little bit of science. Everything is always in motion,
Mhm.
and so even if you're not moving forward, working towards something, growing towards something, then you're moving backwards.
Or you're stuck in the same
Hmm.
place, which is
Yes.
just as bad. Um, you're just not propelling into something better and giving yourself that opportunity to see what is beyond what you've already mastered, what you already know.
Hmm.
And that's just, we only have one life. The way I think about it is like you only have this one life, and it's up to you to make it magical and make it full of adventure and full of experiences. I always say I'm not a very materialistic person. I don't care about labels. I don't care about, name brands. I've never cared for that. Like, if you're
Hmm.
gonna drop $1,500 on a purse, like, no. Like, I wanna take a trip. I wanna go
Right.
see, I wanna go to a new restaurant. I want to take a weekend getaway, even if it's an hour away. Because to me, it's like when we die, what's all that material stuff? Like, it's nothing. But the
Hmm.
experiences that you have, no one's gonna take that away from you. It's in your memory bank, and it's just, it gives you life. In my personal experience, it gives me life. It fills my cup up. So, it's really important for individuals to really start doing things that generate that happy feeling. For some people, it might be purses. They might love
Hmm.
purses. They might love that fills their cup up. They don't care to go out and be in public. They want to be able to go to the next party and have the latest fashion on, which is great. That's also great if that's what fills their cup. But as long as you are doing it for you. Don't do it for
Hmm.
show, don't do it for other people, because at the end of the day, you're gonna start realizing that you're still feeling empty on the inside. It's not filling your cup. You're trying to put in this physical appearance of what it is for the world, but inside you're empty or you're stuck
Hmm.
in the same thing. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is just do it for myself. What fills my cup? What makes me happy? And, for me, for example, like in a relationship, you compromise with that individual, right? Because what fills my cup might not fill their cup. So
Right.
that's really understanding each other and being able to do things that we both enjoy, because that's what it is. And that also puts you out of your comfort zone. Like just because I don't necessarily like something or I'm drawn to it, I'll do it and just it's something I would never do otherwise because it's
Hmm.
not something I like. So it's change, it's adapting to it, it's doing something that you normally wouldn't. And that's expanding my knowledge because hey, Otherwise, I would have never done it because it's not something that attracts me or calls my attention. Vice versa, there might be things that I do that don't attract that person, and they're gonna be like, I have to do
Mhm.
that." But now they're exposed to it. Now they have that knowledge bank that otherwise they would have never had because they've never experienced it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so like with you, I feel like we're kind of similar in this where we like to live through experiences.
Mhm,
That's what fills our cup is experience the moment, experience different things, diversity, experience different people, make different connections with people. And I think that is essential to our human nature. Like our species, we want to connect. Um, I know nowadays there's more and more research coming out that's it's saying how important it is for people to connect with each other and
mhm,
for our survival, because now we're not worried about running away from tigers or where we're going to get our next meal. Now we're not worried about like, oh, I have to get married because if not, no one's going to support me and I'm going to be out on the streets. We have all this time on our hands now to do more, but yet we still often get into this place where we feel stuck.
mhm,
And sometimes I feel like it's because we're focusing on maybe the wrong things. Like if you've lived all your life doing one thing one way, maybe it's time to switch it up. Maybe
mhm.
it's time to stir the pot and see what happens. And I think that's why you and me like experiencing life so much, because it gets our creativity going, it gets us thinking, it gets us flowing into new thoughts, new emotions, and that I feel like is essential for us. I remember growing up a lot. I don't remember. Sorry, I don't know if you remember this saying, but there's a saying that was said a lot: "Curiosity kills the cat." And I would hear it all the time growing up. Now I don't hear it as much, but I mean, it's a simple saying, but it's so detrimental because then you get this fear. But that is who we are. We're curious.
Mhm.
We need to be curious. If we're not curious, we would have never advanced as far as we have come as a species. That is essential to us. We need to be curious, look into things. That in itself will bring the change.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that quote that you said about the curiosity and the cat, it's just a mechanism that's been used to keep people very sheltered and keep people very like, this is what it is, and you don't step
Hmm.
outside of these lines because
Yeah.
there's danger outside of these lines. And even now, like, anytime people talk about, oh, let's travel, let's do this, it's like, oh, it's dangerous. Well, it's dangerous here too. It's dangerous
Yeah.
everywhere.
Hmm.
I think the fear is that here, or in your communities, you're used to the danger. You know the danger
Hmm.
versus going to a new danger. That's where the fear comes from, right? But
Hmm.
if you're always like stuck in just your community, then you're never going to really expand your horizons. You just have to maneuver yourself in a safe way where you're not drawing attention, and you're going to be able to practice safe travels, right? There's one thing that one of my teachers told me a long time ago, and it stuck to me. And they said, you could learn a lot through books, but there's nothing like learning through your own experiences.
Hmm.
And that was like, whoa, like that really got to me because I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like when you have a lot of experiences to share, it's a beautiful thing. I love talking to elderly people. There was a
Me
professor.
too. Hmm.
Right? I just took a class. I'm actually back in school, um, to get some more units, and our last professor, this man was probably like, well, I don't know, in his, like, high 70s, Like he was an older man. Like he has like 3 or 4 books published.
Mhm.
He's doing all kinds of like collaborations with different people, like successful man. He's a college professor right now at UC Riverside, and he talks about all his experiences, and hearing them talk, I'm like, that's what I want. When I am 75 years old, I want to have a whole book journal full of stories to share of my experiences and how good life was. I don't wanna just sit there and be like, "Oh, well, I just wanna work every day, and I never did anything, and I don't wanna be that person. I wanna grow my knowledge bank. I want my experiences. I want to really be out there and live life. Till this day, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm so grateful for where I'm at, and if I stop here and just process on everything that I have done in the past to get here, I'm like, "Whoa, I've done a lot." I don't really pay too much attention to the things that have gotten me to this position where I'm at
Mhm.
now, and it's a lot. I've
Yeah.
accomplished a lot, and I'm
Mhm.
grateful for that. But even then, I'm just like, "Okay, what's the next thing?" Like, I don't wanna just feel like, "Okay, I've done what I have to do. This is it. I'm done."
Mm-mm.
Like, I just can't. It's not within me. So,
Yeah,
for any
me either.
yeah, no. So for anyone that's out there, like, feeling stuck, uh, what would you suggest to listeners that are going through a moment where they're feeling stuck right now?
I would say, I mean, I would put up a challenge, do something new, do something that you have never ever done. Even like get your brain flowing. Ask yourself, when was the last time you did something new, like completely new?
Yeah,
And if that answer is never, well, it's time. It's time to try something new.
I like that. I like that. 'Cause, yeah, that's all it is to get out of a routine or a rut or this feeling of being stuck. It's literally trying something new. If you're
Mhm.
the person that goes to the same Sunday brunch, change the location. If
Exactly. It
you're
could
the
be something as
person
simple as that.
yeah, if you're the person that is constantly doing, I don't know, yoga, and now you're like, "Okay, I wanna try weight training." Try some like, expose yourself to new things that you know don't normally do, that are gonna really, like, bring that sense of, like, excitement, just having that excitement to
Mhm.
move forward.
Yeah, or a sense of any feeling, even if that feeling is fear, you're like, oh, this was kind of scary. I don't think I want to do that anymore. At least now your emotions are moving,
Yeah,
right? You're having movement in your life where you could go back and think, like, oh, okay, that was something scary. I probably don't want to do it again. But that opened up a whole new world to me, and I want to try this.
yeah, yep, that was very well said. Well, that I think that wraps up our episode for today, unless you have something else that you would like to share?
No, I think I'm all good.
Yeah, same here. Just your homework out there, listeners, is to try something new. Try something that you've been wanting to try, that you've been too afraid to try, or go somewhere you've been wanting to go that you've been saying you want to do it, but you just don't make the time, or you end up falling into the same routine of what you are used to doing just because you're used to it.
Mhm.
All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in and listening, and we will see you all in our next episode. Bye.
Bye.